National's Clutha-Southland MP Hamish Walker has confirmed he leaked the personal details of COVID-19 patients to the media. Former National Party President and acting CEO of the Auckland Rescue Helicopter Trust, Walker Boag, has resigned from her role after declaring she passed on the details to Mr Walker. RNZ was one of three media outlets that received the information from Mr Walker. The leaking of the details is subject to a State Services Commission inquiry being led by Queen's Counsel Michael Heron. Our political reporter Joe Moyer joins us now live from Parliament with this unfolding story. Joe, there has been an absolute flurry of press statements tonight, so let's start with the latest. Who's saying what?
Yeah, there certainly has been a flurry, Lisa. So we'll start with Hamish Walker, the MP for Clutha-Southland. Now, he's informed his leader, Todd Muller, that he was responsible for the leak of these personal details. He says he gave it to the media to expose the government's shortcomings. He says the information wasn't password protected, nor was it stored on a secure system. He says he basically shared it because he hopes that the government's protocols will improve as a result of this. Now, he's apologised for how he handled that information, and he's obviously apologised to those COVID-19 patients whose details he shared with the media. And he says that he will fully cooperate with the QC Michael Heron inquiry that's going on. Now, not long after that, we received a press statement from Todd Muller, the leader. He has stripped Hamish Walker of his forestry, land information and associate tourism portfolios, and he has asked Hamish Walker to contact Michael Heron and to cooperate fully with that inquiry. Walker Boag then came into play with her press statement. Now, she's confirmed that she passed the information on to Hamish Walker after receiving it on her personal email. Now, she says that was a massive error of judgment and she's apologised. Now, she's the acting CEO of the Auckland Rescue Helicopter Trust, and she says that she's resigned from that role and she's apologised to her colleagues and says this doesn't reflect on the trust at all. It was very much her own personal act. She says she didn't expect that Hamish would pass the information on to media outlets, and as I say, is very apologetic and says that it's about her and nothing to do with the Helicopter Trust.
Okay, Joe, let's take a step back. How did this leak come to light and how did it unfold before we got to this point?
So we're going back now to Saturday. Now, on Saturday we saw RNZ, the Herald and Stuff all run stories saying that they'd received information. Now, the details that they had received included names, ages, addresses and the quarantine locations of where these 18 COVID active cases had stayed. Now, those 18 cases were up to last week. So that information was published, that there had been a leak. However, none of the media outlets, including RNZ, did anything with those personal details or published any of those personal details. The State Services Minister Chris Hipkins got involved very quickly over the weekend and said that he was looking to launch an inquiry. Now, he announced yesterday that the QC Michael Heron would be investigating and that he wanted it done very quickly and that he would be reporting back to the State Services Minister by the end of this month, so about 3 weeks' time. Mr Hipkins said that it was a very serious breach from what he could see, and he did say that it could possibly result in criminal charges at the time.
It's really interesting, the timing of the press statements, given that Michael Heron was appointed yesterday and is a well-known investigator and has done some really high-profile cases, for them all of a sudden to come forward and confess what they have done. So what happens now, Joe?
So, I mean, we still have this inquiry and there still are some questions to be answered. So from here, you'd expect that Hamish Walker and Walker Boag will cooperate with the inquiry and be interviewed by Michael Heron. Now, bear in mind, Walker Boag, in that role with the Auckland Rescue Helicopter Trust, she would be privy to that sort of information, but the interesting part from her press statement is that she received it through her personal email address. So there will be questions about how she received that information, why she received it in that way, and of course then passing it on to Hamish Walker. Now, I have contacted the State Services Minister's Chris Hipkins' office. He hasn't got a statement at this time. He's tied up at the moment, but obviously he's going to have a decision to make as well, as this has all got very political now, and it will be a case of whether he just completely leaves it to Michael Heron to deal with or whether he decides to get involved in the politics of it.
Thanks, Joe. That is Joe Moyer just updating us on the situation there. We're following the news from Hamish Walker, the National MP, that he is the source of the leak of that COVID-19 patient information with the assistance of Walker Boag. While Checkpoint has calls in to Hamish Walker, Todd Muller and Nikki Kay, but strangely, none of them are answering their phones. Walker Boag has spoken to us, but she's declined to be interviewed.